Hi, my name is Riley Dickey, and today I'll be talking about how the brain makes decision by combining emotions, reasoning, and reward. These three systems work together behind the scenes every time we choose something. Even when we don't realize it, a lot of our choices feel automatic, but when we look closely at how much the brain processes information, it becomes clear that decision making is a much more complex and fascinating process. This topic matters because decision making is part of every moment of our daily lives, from small things like what we eat for breakfast to big choices about relationships, schools, or career. The brain is constantly running emotional, logical, and reward based calculations in the background. Even when something feels simple, the brain is actually blending instincts, memories, feelings, and expectations. Understanding that helps us see why people sometimes act impulsively and other times act clearly. When we talk about decision making, we usually imagine it as this clean and logical process, but in reality, a lot of what happens starts unconsciously. The brain uses emotions, past experience, and gut reactions before our logical mind even has time to catch up. That's why choices can feel fast or automatic. The brain is constantly scanning for patterns, predicting outcomes, and guiding us. Even small changes in how choices are presented can nudge people towards certain options. This means people are not as rational or as in control of their choices as they think. We get influenced by defaults, comparison, wording, and the way information is organized. Once you understand this, it becomes easier to see how often our decisions are guided by the structure around us, not just by our own reasoning. Emotions act like the brain's early warning system. The amygdala reacts instantly to things that seem important, stressful, or meaningful. This emotional response helps protect us, but it can also push us towards quick reactions. These feelings show up before we have time to logically process the situation, which is why emotions can guide a choice even if the fact points in a different direction. Whether it's fear, excitement, or comfort, emotional signals play a major role in what we decide. The prefrontal cortex handles our logical thinking. It slows things down, helps us compare options, and makes us think about long-term consequences. This part of the brain is responsible for planning, evaluating risk, and making thoughtful choices. It works more slowly than emotions, but it gives us the ability to pause and question our first instinct. Without the system, most decisions would be fast, emotional, and impulsive. The reward system motivates us by releasing dopamine, which makes certain actions feel satisfying. The brain learns to predict rewards and seek out experiences that feel enjoyable or exciting. This is why some habits form so easily and why certain choices are difficult to resist. The reward system plays a major role in cravings, motivation, and the urge to repeat behaviors. It helps guide our decisions by pulling us towards whatever feels rewarding and pleasurable. What makes decision making so interesting is how emotions, logic, and reward all interact. Emotions usually react first, logical steps into think things through, and the reward system pushes us towards what feels positive or beneficial. These systems don't compete, they all just blend together. That's why someone can make a smart choice one moment and a more impulsive one the next. It depends on which system is stronger in that situation. I chose this topic because I've always been curious about why people behave the way that they do. Understanding decision making connects emotion, logic, and motivation, which are all things that shape how we live our daily lives. I like learning about why people react to things differently and what influences their choices. Decision making brings all of that together and helps explain both the thoughtful and impulsive sides of human behavior. One of the biggest things that I learned is that decisions are not purely logic. Emotional reactions and the expectation of a reward often guides our choices before we even notice what's happening. But once we understand that these systems influence us, we can become more aware of our impulses and make more intentional choices. Knowing this helps us slow down, think more clearly, and match our decisions with the goals we actually care about. This information matters because it helps people understand themselves better. When we know how decisions are made in the brain, we can recognize emotional triggers, manage impulses, and understand why some choices feel easier or harder. This knowledge is useful in everyday life, school, relationships, and anything that involves behavior. It helps people make decisions that are more thoughtful and aligned with what they really want. These are the sources I use for my research, including